Where will you be in the 24th century?
Space, the final frontier.
Come explore the worlds above and beyond as E goes inside Star Trek.
Fascinating.
Welcome to E's Inside Look at Star Trek. I'm Michael Kastner. And this, in case you don't know, is a phaser, the weapon of choice in the 24th century. Do you feel phased? You'll lose your appetite in a couple of minutes, trust me. Anyway, the 24th century belongs to Star Trek. The universe we're about to enter at warp speed is a space of limitless imagination and, above all, hope for the future of humankind. Sounds like pretty lofty ideals for a movement spawned by an unassuming sci-fi series from the 1960s. Well, in the next hour, our prime directive is to show you why the Star Trek phenomenon is about an awful lot more than just pure entertainment.
The cast of Star Trek.
It all started out in 1966 when 7 space-age pioneers were transported into America's living room via the small screen.
Ladies and gentlemen, there is Hollywood's Mount Rushmore.
This event launched an international phenomenon that has become one of the most successful and enterprising vehicles in entertainment history.
Star Trek presents a very optimistic view of the future, and I think that that appeals to a lot of people. Particularly back in the 60s when you had the nuclear threat and the Cold War, and people didn't know if they were going to survive another day, and the Cuban Missile Crisis, and here's a show that says 300 years from now, everything's going to be great.
Star Trek's creator, the late Gene Roddenberry, recognized the need for hope in uncertain times. His vision captured the imagination of millions and found a place in the heart of American popular culture. It's a vision that has spanned nearly 30 years.
Gene Roddenberry was the force that created Star Trek. His creative abilities and his desire for perfection all made Star Trek so much of what it is.
As Gene Roddenberry said to me when I was auditioning for the show years ago, he said, "Jonathan, in the 24th century, there will be no hunger and there will be no greed." It was a wonderful image that has stuck with me ever since.
During its 3 seasons, the original series never climbed above 50th place in the ratings. NBC tried to cancel it 3 times and finally did so in 1969. But something magical happened shortly after the series went into syndicated reruns. The fans united, and the Star Trek phenomenon was born.
We are part of the culture, and that if you say something's logical, people have a sense of Star Trek about that. And if you do this, people understand it has something to do with Star Trek. If you talk about pointed ears, you're talking about something that has to do with a character that I played on Star Trek. If you see a bumper sticker that says, "Beam me up, Scotty," we know what we're talking about. It's part of the culture, it's part of the language.
The 6 Star Trek films have grossed over $470 million in domestic release alone. There are countless books on the various Star Trek incarnations, and Trek merchandising has turned into a multi-million-dollar venture.
It's really absolutely phenomenal. I heard the figure that Paramount made $1 billion on what they call the franchise of Star Trek. So to be a part of that is kind of incredible.
There's no denying that Star Trek is successful, but what may remain a mystery is its longevity and generational appeal.
People need something like Gene's vision, the prime directive, that philosophy. It's an extraordinary philosophy. It's held up after how many years? People still can watch an episode and hear the philosophy of the tolerance and all of that and go, yeah, that's too bad we're not that way. Let's try to live up to that. Let's try to emulate the behavior of the Starfleet people.
I think one of the primary secrets to the success of Star Trek is its ability to look at the condition of humanity and develop stories that tell us about ourselves and explore issues that we're interested in.
Star Trek's continuing mission was furthered when Paramount gave the green light to a new series, Star Trek: The Next Generation, in 1987. The success of Captain Picard and his crew proved that Star Trek has gone beyond Kirk, Spock in the 23rd century.
There's something about just the nature of the format that Gene created. He created something that can basically go forever and has I mean, since the point at which he first came up with the idea. It's just the single best format for a television show, I think, that anyone's ever thought of.
Deep Space Nine, a third series launched in 1992, now takes audiences to the far reaches of the galaxy.
Star Trek is a legend, and there's no doubt about that. And the different installments help further that legend. And I'm a very lucky boy to be part of it.
In the next hour, we'll take you where no one has gone before. We're going behind the scenes of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Make it so.
We'll visit the set of Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
But you know who comes in to save the day? Just wait and see.
We'll watch the creation of new life forms. You'll meet the masterminds behind the special effects.
Well, the actors like it. I think it's fun.
And we'll clue you into the real secret behind Star Trek's success. And as an added bonus, I'll even take you along on the Star Trek experience of a lifetime. I'm not going alone. You're coming with me. Let's go. And we'll find out how this thing works later on in the show. But up next, E probes the alternate universe of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
No, you don't.
Hi, I'm Michael Kastner, and this is E's 60-minute look inside Star Trek. I suppose your first clue is this really cool-looking little emblem. It's the new uniform. What do you think? We're trying them out here. The original Star Trek series left the air in 1969. In the 80s, the first 4 of 6 Star Trek feature films grossed more than $345 million, and that was just in the U.S. But even that wasn't enough to guarantee the saga another shot at television. It wasn't until 1987 that Star Trek: The Next Generation had its debut. Turns out beaming Star Trek back onto the small screen was a stroke of programming genius. Star Trek: The Next Generation consistently rates among the top 10-hour series on television and holds the #1 spot for syndicated drama. So sit tight. We're going to transport you to where it all happens, the bridge of the Starship Enterprise. Here it is, the bridge of the Starship Enterprise, home to Star Trek: The Next Generation.
There's a certain mystique about being on the bridge. And I've seen it when friends of mine who are true fans come onto the bridge. There's a certain aura and it's quite nice, actually.
Here's what it looks like with all hands on board on shooting day.
Please.
And here's the man in the captain's chair, Jean-Luc Picard.
A Renaissance man, I think is a wonderful description of him, and he has grown into that in the course of these 7 years. A Renaissance man meaning what? A man of politics, of leadership, of culture, of education, of good taste.
Somewhere in there, give it a little extra beat. This sequence here that we're shooting now comes fairly close to the top of the show, and it's just kind of setting the stage for the events that follow. If you notice, our coverage is fairly simple on the bridge, because we want the show to start with a little bit of a slow pace, and then as the adventure increases, we pick up the pace and we do a lot more shots so we can cut faster and get a lot of different angles. But here we keep it kind of slow and easy so that by contrast, the other part looks more exciting.
Cut. Good. How about you, Chris? Okay, that's a print. New deal, folks.
Playing around. It's all work here. All work.
Look at this. $35.95. Send your checks and money orders. Brent Spiner, Paramount Pictures. For your own padded apple box. Need another tape?
Brent Spiner plays the role of Lieutenant Commander Data.
He's exactly what you think he is. He's Data, the lovable android, who is naive and childlike and super strong and super intelligent and just a genuinely nice character to play.
What was that line about this? About what rise? That makes me feel much better.
Yeah. The episode shooting today revolves around LeVar Burton's character, Lieutenant Geordi LaForge. Burton has directed some shows, so he pays close attention to every detail of his performance.
I just wanted to fix something in one of the speeches there about her being a starship captain.
Okay. All right.
I had a bobble.
We're going again. Hey, settle, please.
And action.
Am I crazy to think she's still alive? This is the first time in the over 6 years that we've been doing this show that we meet anyone from Geordie's past, and we finally meet his family, his mother and his father. There is a tragedy, there's an accident that happens, and one of my parents is believed dead. You guys weren't supposed to be here for that. You've blown all of it here. No, I feel bad about myself. I think I'll be depressed for the rest of the day.
You went on the line in the seated position, then rise.
I've allowed you to
take him up and then let him back
to see the secret.
Well, why shouldn't we grant them asylum?
We can't do that.
We've been concentrating on the guys, but women have made it into the 24th century too. They just haven't come as far as some might have hoped.
There is still an element that the men are the stronger sex, and that's a shame. That's a shame. But then you also have to remember that although we're doing a show that's based in the 24th century, we're shooting it in the 20th century, and television is a mirror to society. If we go too far in Star Trek, it's not going to be accepted by the people now.
The society is genetically integrated. Suddenly there would be gaps, missing pieces. There have been many times where I've thought, this is ridiculously sexist. But then I also see what an impact it has in a very positive way already. And what Gene Roddenberry and the producers and writers have put together are actually very admirable female characters.
Will your nervous system be able to handle that much sensory input?
The Next Generation has dealt with all kinds of social issues during its 6 seasons on the air. The producers' willingness to address them is in large part responsible for the show's popularity.
I think there's a certain awareness of the need to address sexism and racism and equality. I think if we should be so lucky as to abide by the Prime Directive, it'd be a better place to live.
I reviewed the vessel's mission plans. The Raman was to descend to the lowest atmosphere, 11,000 kilometers below its current position. The crew was to sample the atmosphere at that level and then return to a higher orbit.
All of the actors on The Next Generation come from a theater background. This training is especially handy when it comes to getting their lines out right.
It's helpful, I think, because the language is heightened. It's not your everyday conversation. I've always felt that Star Trek, the style of it was kind of a cross between Shakespeare and, you know, flying around the house with a towel around your neck, you know, pretending you're Superman. I mean, it's sort of the balance of the two.
It's a balancing act Star Trek The Next Generation pulls off with great ease.
Send it directly to the aft section of the Raman through the secondary airlock. That will put it just one bulkhead away from the bridge.
I'll interface with the probe as soon as it's in place, and then take it the rest of the way from there.
Make it so.
Make it so, Captain. When we come back, it's Roots reunion time on Star Trek The Next Generation.
I came here for that.
Welcome back to Inside Star Trek on E! I'm Michael Kastner. We've been spending time with the cast and crew on the set of Star Trek The Next Generation. Now, despite the long hours of makeup, rehearsal, and actual shooting, this is a group who really likes coming to work. Even so, everyone needs some time away for a little R&R, and for some cast members, life off the set is as much fun as their day job.
Clark. Settle, please. And action.
On the set of The Next Generation, actor Michael Dorn plays Lieutenant Worf, a powerful Klingon warrior who is the first of his race to serve on a Starfleet vessel.
I think he's very cool. I think he's very cool. I think he has a lot of what we all would like to be. And I mean, he really is. His emotions are out there.
When he's not on the Starship Enterprise, Dorn is into his own kind of space.
Jets. Well, actually, I have it's an experimental 60s era jet called the Casa jet that I've been flying, and but at every opportunity I have, I go to some of the air bases, Air Force bases and Navy bases, and fly what they have.
That's right, this guy's a pilot, and he's got the pictures to prove it.
The helmet and the flight suit is all part of the thing. It helps you fly better, to be dressed correctly. In fact, I probably should get you a shot of my flying boots also, that we I just got in the mail. A lot of people can look at our show as reality and really get into it, and that's good. That's very good. You know, we want them to be, you know, to think of it as, you know, as real as possible, because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to portray these characters as real as possible. So, but, you know, my hobby is more reality than out there in space and things.
We'll leave Michael to enjoy his day off and head back to the set of Star Trek The Next Generation, where actor Ben Vereen is living a dream come true. Longtime fan Vereen is establishing the role of Dr. LaForge, father to LeVar Burton's character, Geordi.
I got the world on the string.
Guest appearances are a series trademark, and it's hard to tell who's more excited about the visit, the crew or the celebrity Trekker.
You know, I was dreaming of this, and a couple of weeks ago, my manager called and said, you know, they'd like for you to come out and play LeVar's father. And it didn't hit me right away. And I was doing the show, Jelly's Last Jam on Broadway. And all of a sudden, I was walking backstage behind, and the show was going on, and it dawned on me what she had said, and I screamed. And meanwhile, Brian Mitchell, who plays the part of Jelly, was on stage, and he hears with the background going, yeah! All right! As many times as you like, man. Okay, let's do it again. This is a victory. You bet it is. Okay. Make a face.
Vereen's presence on the set is a real thrill for LeVar Burton. He idolized the versatile Vereen long before they met on the set of the acclaimed miniseries Roots.
Ben is a major part of why I got into this business. I mean, when I was a junior in high school, I traveled across country from California to New York, and the main purpose of the trip for me was to see him at the Imperial Theater in Pippin, and I waited 2 hours at the backstage door for him to come down, and I got a picture, and I had him sign my program, and you know, and then years later, when we both did Roots, I had an opportunity to show him that picture, and you know, and so our history has been an intense one, and we've never worked together before.
Settle, please. And action.
How are you, Dad?
As well as can be expected under the circumstances.
We talk about the fact of being in the 24th century together.
But your sister and I...
And the consciousness of that and what it means to the planet.
Starfleet is considering the Hera lost. The search isn't much more than a formality at this point.
That's the one thing I love about the show, because when you think about Star Trek, there is no barriers as far as racial barriers, as far as consciousness barriers. You know, it's about beyond the scope of our our perception of where life is today.
All right, Jody. Call me if you need anything.
And cut. Very nice.
Cut.
Great.
39?
Yep.
Okay.
Is that it?
That's it?
That's it? You came here for that?
I came here for that.
He came here to establish a character is what he did.
Yes, I did.
It's always cool when your friends can come and play with you on your job.
Oh, man. This is... thank you. You know what was real special? Receiving my itinerary, and at the bottom it says, "Welcome to the 24th century."
And the 24th century is just where I'll be going later on in the show. But coming up, we're traveling to the farthest edge of the galaxy. That's right, we're going to Star Trek Deep Space Nine, so hold on through this commercial break. Welcome back, I'm Michael Kastner, and this is E's 1 hour look inside Star Trek. The next stop in our continuing Star Trek saga is Deep Space Nine. Actually, DS9, as the series followers like to call it, isn't a Federation starship at all. It's an alien space station on the farthest edge of the galaxy. The show is action-oriented, but it still upholds Star Trek creator Gene Roddenberry's vision. You could say it's an adventure show with a conscience.
In here is the Gamma Quadrant. Out here is our solar system.
The Gamma Quadrant is the portion of space where Deep Space Nine is located. Amazing that it can be found on a sound studio on the Paramount lot. And while the Enterprise and the Next Generation goes off in search of strange new worlds, aliens from all over the galaxy come to Deep Space Nine.
We wanted to develop a show that had the vehicle for conflict in our writing. So what we decided to do was to come up with a situation where Federation personnel, Starfleet officers, were invited to come in to an area that they weren't particularly all that welcome in, and an area in which they weren't all that comfortable in.
What the hell do you people intend to accomplish here?
The sets that have been created for Deep Space Nine are very realistic and nearly functional.
The main sets that are part of the show are where we're sitting on now. This is ops, and that's short for operations. I'm actually sitting in Chief O'Brien's panel here, and if I were to press some of these buttons, some very wonderful things might happen.
This guy here, he's not there now, but he pulls the doors open. But they work, you know.
I think the sick part of it is you start to kind of, because these sets are so real, you kind of start going, yeah, we are in a station. We are in space, isn't it cool? And we're all dressed in uniform all the time anyway, so it's playing pretend all day long.
When I started this show, my son was 3.5 months old. And that's the first thing, he comes on the set all the time because that's when I get to see him. And the first thing he did was look at it and touch it, poke it, and then he laughed. And that was the last time he ever made mention of my nose. It was like, okay, that's what Mama wears when she's at work.
Nana Visitor also has to wear alien garb.
These are the Bajoran uniforms, which come in, you get lovely gray or you get a lovely rust.
For some of the Deep Space Niners, these outer space outfits aren't all that foreign. You see, a couple of them wore these space fashions while on Star Trek The Next Generation, and they seem to welcome the wardrobe change.
These are great because if you gain a little weight, no one can tell.
Well, it's looser. It's a lot looser. The top part of Next Generation space is really...
They also seem to like the new, what we refer to as the utility uniform, which is the new one-piece jumpsuit, which is made out of a lightweight wool gabardine.
Once the costumes are complete, the characters come out.
I'm a major and I'm the first officer. And I'm also not Federation. So I'm not always politically correct.
He's chief of security, yeah. And he's a shapeshifter.
He is,
On docking base 6.
comparatively, I suppose, of the major captains, is very, very human. He shows, wears what he feels.
Cisco to security.
Go ahead.
I need a couple of officers to go on a rescue mission to Bajor. Report to run about pad C.
On our way.
One of the most stimulating personalities on Deep Space Nine is Quark. He's the local club owner and loves to scam on women.
I am sort of Sam Malone, and I have his good looks as well. I have my own establishment. I have a lot of lovely female types coming in and out of the bar all the time. I make a great deal of gold.
Very well. Perhaps we could discuss these new rules over a drink.
If you don't take that hand off my hip, you'll never be able to raise a glass with it again.
Pig is the right word. My character's a pig.
You forgot the thing. All right.
You look so gross, those teeth.
In this scene with Rick Colby, who's directing, wonderful director, I'm meeting a very lovely Boslick, which is a new race to our show, Boslick freighter captain.
Now, Leslie, could you go for his earlobes? That's where you normally don't grab him, but just caress him as you come in.
With my hands.
Yes.
Just because he's a chauvinist pig doesn't mean Quark isn't a sensitive 24th century kind of guy.
Oh, very sensitive to my ears. Oh, yeah.
Action, please.
Hi, Quark. How are your lobes?
England at the sight of you. And I get away with murder most of the time. Most of the time.
No, I don't.
My nemesis, Odo, has a way of sitting on me. But most of the time I can get away with a lot of things.
I need a slimy character like him, and he needs me chasing after him.
In this scene, see, there's a lot of turmoil down on the planet, and one of the major Federation officers is missing, and they're all looking for her. But you know who comes in to save the day? Just wait and see.
Good. When's Odo due back?
Only 12 hours.
Who needs Odo when you got his #1 deputy?
Not everyone feels that way, Quark. Bonds do form quickly when you're stuck on the outer limits of the universe, especially after their hiatus.
Terry I haven't seen for ages, so today is the first day I've seen Terry in 3 months. So we had a fond welcome today, and so, yeah, we're affectionate now. 10 months' time, we'll see what we're like.
You know, both on a personal level and on an acting level, we gel pretty fast. So it feels like we've been doing it for a long time.
We'll meet the humans behind the aliens and check out some amazing special effects when Inside Star Trek returns.
Up on the top shelf, we have a whole row of Ferengi heads.
Don't I look beautiful? What do you think?
I'm Michael Kastner, and you're watching E's Look Inside Star Trek. Star Trek The Next Generation and Star Trek Deep Space Nine are not only some of the most popular shows on television, they're also among the most expensive to produce. Creating the illusion of the future and filling it with fantastic creatures doesn't come cheap. But more important than the budget on shows like these are the creative minds who bring these worlds and their inhabitants to life.
Hello, I'm Michael Westmore, the makeup designer and department head of Deep Space Nine and The Next Generation. There's a difference in the type of work we're doing now as opposed to 25 years ago. And I would think one of the biggest differences is the materials we have now are far more advanced, far more developed, and we have more time, we have bigger budgets.
Oh, 5 after 7. See you in 3 hours. 3 hours later, what do you think? It was worth it. Every moment. I gotta go to work. They make me go to work after 3 hours of sitting there. This is the easy part. The makeup is the hard part.
It takes an hour and a half to put on. Yeah, but that's my whole makeup. And the fact is my skin has to be matched to this, and it has to be built up so that there's not a line. And they do an amazing job.
I'm generally in, if everything is going right, I'm in at 5:45, and I'm in makeup for an hour and 15 minutes, and then on the stage for anywhere between 13 and 18, 20 hours.
It's a rash, and I'm embarrassed about it. We tried to cover it, it wouldn't work. They had a forehead on me, and Paramount apparently just went, what did you do to her face?
The process has evolved over the years from really being a pain to where it's actually tolerable.
People say, oh, does it hurt? Is it hot? Is it this? Is it that? It's, it feels like you have a cold. And actually, today I do have a cold. So it feels like I have a double whammy cold.
A lot of actors have told me that they have in their makeup felt claustrophobic. I can't even say that word.
Okay, so it's not always comfortable. Even so, the cast members willingly forego their own creature comforts for the sake of Michael Westmore's vision.
This is our alien called the Trunkhead. It's one of the more interesting, I think, and more difficult aliens that we have on the show.
Oh, this would be like a Fellini movie in a minute. If you've ever done body work on cards, you know what Bondo is. For the skin game, this is facial Bondo. This is a very crucial step in the makeup where my back starts to go out.
Once the Trunkhead's tedious and time-consuming makeup session is over, they're faced with an even bigger challenge. And so is their creator.
I think the more you do, the easier it gets, because you get into a role where you think all of a sudden I'm burnt out and I can't think anymore. And kind of it started to get that way after the first season. You think I've made as many bumps as I possibly can. But then the more research books that you start to delve through and you start to go through, it starts to get to the point where I more or less take it for granted. It's like, okay, we need 18 new aliens. All right, you know, sit down and we'll put them together.
I am Dan Curry, visual effects producer for Star Trek The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine. With the original Star Trek, the major differences at the time that was made, the digital technology that we have today, as you see around us, was not in existence. There are two things that are happening in this shot. First of all, this is Brent Spiner as Lore, Data's evil brother, and this is Brent Spiner as Data, our stalwart commander on the Enterprise. So this shot combines the technology of a split screen, where we shot Brent as Lore and then Brent as Data, and then it also combines this electronic matte painting I'm doing now, and I'll be adding a flying buttress over there and we'll provide you with the finished shot. Here's the finished shot. This is where I painted in the flying buttresses and just extended up the building with an electronic airbrush. And running, it looks like.
I think it's kind of nice that, at least for a little while, some of the kids who watch the show really kind of believe in it and think we're real and that we really are in space and I'm really a machine and not just a boring adult.
Well, the actors like it. I think it's fun. They enjoy seeing the shots put together at the end. It's like if they're being shot against a blue void and they see the final show, they kind of get a kick out of being in outer space.
Get ready. And left. And back.
Inertial dampeners are offline. Life support is failing. Entering the planet's atmosphere.
And right.
There are certain characteristics of this show that people have identified as being very Star Trek. And what I've just been doing now, i.e. this kind of acting, whenever, you know, the shuttle is going through a lot of clear air turbulence. I always feel slightly embarrassed when, you know, there are visitors around, because it's one of those Star Trek cliches, you know, the bodies being thrown around inside the shuttle.
Another important part of visual effects on our shows is morphing.
I remember Odo morphs, right? Rene Aubergenois morphs into different things, and there was one show that he morphs into a rat. How the hell did they do that?
We have Rene scanned in the computer with a laser scanner, so we have his body in the computer essentially as a puppet, and we can animate him and morph between him and his live-action self, taking him from a liquid state and making him ooze through grates and travel along the floor, and then morph back to his live-action self then.
A rat is the most sort of animated thing. Usually I'm doorknobs.
We've had him flow into a lap.
I've been a picture on a wall.
We've had him had a very bad headache.
I've been a chair.
Just a lot of interesting different shapes.
I don't know. The Trekkers know everything I've been.
It's that world of enlightened adventure that attracts audiences. It certainly makes it attractive for us to work on.
Amazing how they do all that stuff, isn't it? Well, don't go away. We've got true confessions of Never Say Die devotees when E's Inside Look at Star Trek continues.
I watch Star Trek The Next Generation. My favorite character is Hairless. He is always in command of the ship. He's at the bridge. His name is Patrick Stewart.
I'm Michael Kastner, and you're watching E's one-hour show, Inside Star Trek. We certainly can't let the hour go by without introducing you to some Trekkers. That's what die-hard devotees call themselves. Trekkers run the gamut from Academy Award-winning actress Whoopi Goldberg to the 12-year-old kid down the block. More than 20 million of them watch these shows every week, and lots of them attend Star Trek conventions. And over the years, we've attended a couple ourselves.
I'm a Trekker. I am definitely a fan.
I am a big Trekker.
I'm a Star Trek person, you know. I guess I'm a Trekkie. I guess I don't wear the uniforms and stuff.
I must confess, no, I wasn't. I was never really. Science fiction wasn't sort of my thing before this.
Okay, so not everyone was born a Trekker, including some of Star Trek Deep Space Nine's current cast members. But once you start watching, it's hard not to be sucked into the Star Trek subculture. Fans who follow the series religiously take the Star Trek phenomenon very seriously.
Star Trek is part of our whole culture now. It's part of American almost history, you could say, because of the time length that it stretches out.
It's a good philosophy of the future.
I think it's just really fascinating how they have, like, how they show all the special effects and the stuff that may happen in the future.
It's kind of an optimistic view. I mean, when you're channel hopping and you see Bosnia on one channel and, you know, all this other stuff, it's kind of nice to turn to something encouraging.
Over the years, these fans have been stereotyped and ridiculed because of their intense devotion to the series. In reality, though, most Star Trek fans are just sci-fi lovers.
There's the cliche of the Ike Rock Spock fan, you know, who's, you know, living in his mother's fruit cellar and, you know, has a, you know, corpse sitting there. No, and has a little phaser and you know, was like, you know, holding them people off at bay in Waco, you know, and yeah, they're those kind of fans as well. That's true. I mean, and they give the larger fandom a bad rap.
I get a lot of good feedback on Quark, and it's not surprising because I know that the show is good. I'm just surprised at how many people see it and appreciate it and are kind enough to come up and tell me how much they like it.
Even former cast members get great feedback. Actress Susie Plaxton's character was killed off during the 4th season of Star Trek The Next Generation, but she still has a large fan following.
She was a great actress. She played the part really well. And it's too bad they killed her off.
Hello.
You look better without all the bones.
Well, I guess that's real good to hear.
How are you? Fine, it's fine. My brother says you're the best looking Klingon there is.
In addition to getting autographs at conventions, Trekkers come to see their favorite actors speak and to find out what they look like without makeup.
I'm a big ham. I mean, I love sort of being up there and being funny.
Michael? Yes? When you were out shooting in Simi Valley, why didn't you come over for lunch and swim in the pool?
Do you think both of us could get in your pool?
He's a little mean, I must admit. I mean, I was kind of surprised at myself for saying it, but I kind of went, after I said it, boy, this guy could kill me, and they wouldn't think anything about it, you know, but they love it. They kind of get off on it.
They ask you things most of the times you can't do anything about. It's like, write to the producers.
In a way, it's great because you get, it's like with most TV shows, you don't get any very much direct feedback from your audience, you know, but with this show you do. I mean, you can go and talk to these people and you're getting direct feedback about what you're doing, you know, from the public.
I go to the supermarket and people go, they think I'm their dry cleaner or something. And they sort of know I'm somebody they know, but they don't know who I am.
Original cast members often show up at conventions. They come to tell a few stories and share some old feelings with the audience.
This is not a nice guy. This is not a nice guy.
Big fan. No, nothing stops Star Trek fans.
And nothing stops these fans from getting into the Star Trek spirit when they're at a convention.
It's one of my own creations. It is just your typical sort of alien female that Captain Kirk wanted to seduce.
I bought the pattern here at a convention, and then I had a friend sewed it up for me.
I like getting all the attention that I get. Instead of just walking through and being like, you know, everybody else, I can walk through and have 20 people stop me for pictures, which is usually the case.
It's fun to see them to try to emulate what we're doing at the studio, especially with the Borgs and the Klingons.
That's the sword that Worf uses. It's called a Bartlett.
Oh yeah, man, your light's a trip. You should check you guys out. You guys are educational.
It's not enough to attend the conventions and see their favorite characters. True devotees have an intense desire to take home a piece of the Star Trek magic. And there's no end to the memorabilia available to those diehard fans.
The Whoopi photograph of Whoopi, that one right there by herself. That's the biggest seller that we have.
For some of the actors, all this merchandising can take some getting used to.
I don't know, I was a little skeptical about it initially and about being an action figure and such, and then I thought, well, you know, if it's good enough for Alec Guinness, I guess it's good enough for me.
I remember the first day at the beginning of the first season, we were all standing getting pictures taken, and I was standing and posing, and Colin was teasing me about my posing, and I said, yeah, well, we'll see who looks best on the lunchbox.
By the way, the Deep Space Nine lunchboxes aren't available yet, but do check out the next Star Trek convention. I'm sure they're working on them right now. And don't go away. I'll be back to take you on the ultimate Star Trek experience. Everything's quiet here, sir. No sign of life anywhere. Welcome back. I'm Michael Kastner, and this is E's 60-minute look inside Star Trek. Well, we've gone behind the scenes on both Star Trek series, hung out at conventions with some Trekkers, and we watched Odo morph into a rat. So you're probably thinking we've reached the limits of the Star Trek universe, right? Wrong. Space is limitless, and so are the opportunities for participating in the Star Trek experience. So come along with me to the Star Trek exhibit at Universal Studios Hollywood, where I'll face off with some of the fiercest-looking aliens you've ever seen. Here we are at Universal Studios Hollywood, and folks, if you're like me, you like the real thing. And if you're looking for Klingons, Hollywood certainly has plenty of those. This is the place to find real Klingons. Let's check it out.
Okay, now I need one more adult that wants to beam down.
I think I want to beam down. Do I?
You want to do it?
Yeah, sure.
What up? Lucky you got the lead parts in the show.
Oh, great. Okay, is there like any weird headdresses or funny makeup or wigs I have to wear?
No, you're going to be a good guy, so you do
I'll be a
not
good
have
guy?
to wear
I don't have to...
You get to be the Klingon up.
Can you tell me what this is?
It's a communicator, and you got to turn the other way so you can talk to Captain Kirk when you beam down.
I'm gonna go fight some Klingons now. Come on. I'm not going alone. You're coming with me. Let's go. Come on.
Coming into view right now, the planet Ekamol 7, the home of our aliens whom we met earlier, also the destination of our landing party. Our final 5 scenes will take place right here. Michael, you've got a lot of dialogue. When I point, you say that out clear, don't forget to use your communicator. When I point, stand by. All right. Roll the tape, Michael. 3, 2, ready, go.
Everything's quiet here, sir. No sign of life anywhere.
Give him a hand, everybody. Nicely done. Good job, Michael. Fascinating reaction.
Well, you know, we just came in off the stage, taking off my jacket. The film is already starting, you know. We didn't even get a premiere, no interviews, no junket, anything. I kind of feel ripped off, but the film looks really cool. Check it out.
Captain's log supplemental. In the midst of an attack by a Klingon vessel, a strange energy force has rendered both the Enterprise and the Klingon ship helpless. We have located the source of the energy field on the planet's surface, so I have dispatched a landing party to beam down to the planet and investigate.
I have had an absolute blast here. The folks are really, really nice. To be honest with you, the Klingons are just a little bit weird. Wouldn't invite them to dinner, but that's me. I'm just a little bit picky. And great clothes, too. I'm thinking Versace. What do you think? Anyway, I'm out of here. Let's try this one more time. Hey, Scotty, beam me up, big guy. Come on, babe. Hello. Well, I guess you knew that was coming. You know, I've always wanted to be beamed. Thanks for joining us for our inside look at Star Trek. And, oh, yeah, I want to do this right. Live long, whoops, there we go. Live long and prosper. I also own Leonard Nimoy albums, but that's another story. And keep it tuned right here to E, the Entertainment News and Information Authority.